Hello? Hello? Hello, hello. Hi there. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the stream. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, Bones. You chilling out back. Hi, BattleBox. How's it going? Oh my goodness. This music is so loud in my ears. My goodness. Okay, that's better. Hello, Octo. Hello, BattleBox. Hello, hello. How are y'all doing? I hope we're doing good. So yeah, today is our critique stream. I don't hear anything. You don't hear the music at all? Uh-oh. Is that better? Can you hear it a little bit? Can you hear me okay? Testing, testing. Yeah, my headphones were just turned up crazy loud. I don't know. No music. Heck. Well, no music, I guess. I don't know how to fix it. I'm sorry. I'm a great streamer. I totally understand how all this tech works. Okay. So, yes, critique stream. Let's go. We're gonna look at some things that our Patreon supporters have submitted. It's very likely pretty much only Patreon supporters watching this to get your critiques. So you guys all know this, but for the new folks, we're gonna look at some comic thumbnails, some sketches, some character designs, some illustrations, some scripts, and we're gonna give feedback. So I'm gonna jump in, I guess. Who would like to go first? Typically Bone starts, but we're not sure if the writing submission people are here. So I'm gonna kick it off. BattleBox, do you want to go first? Because I see your name in chat. Oh, well. Would that work? Hello. Hello, Black Hayate. Oh, hey, AZ. Welcome. Be there in 20 minutes? Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Okay. Amazing. Critique. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let's hacking go. Ah, wah, wah. Okay. I need to make this a little bit larger. Oh, just kidding. JK. All right. Hum, hum, hum. Okay, so what did you say? On Discord. Okay, so you said you were looking for a general critique with a focus on dialogue and character interactions and pacing. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, so these are all your thumbnail sketches for chapter 6. I found... Personally, I found the pacing of this chapter was a little slow. I can't remember if in the past I've given you feedback of, like, things being too fast. Maybe you were, like, over-adjusting. But I did find that... Yeah, the thing is, I see what you were doing, because you're building up all this tension to Eve meeting with the fella. Oh my god, what is his name? Mr. Evans. I forget his first name. It's been a while since he showed up. But yeah, but you're leading up to this whole meeting between them again after like the first time they met. And there's been some mystery built up with like these gifts being left for Eve, and now he's going to return them after catching Mr. Evans' assistant sneaking around. So I understand the slow pace to kind of build that tension of like the reveal of the mystery, like what the heck is going on kind of thing. So, but I found it was a little bit, it almost felt like a little bit too much blow for each like action going on. So what I mean by that is like between panels, you can do a lot of time skipping. Like your panels should show the most important moment in like a span of time. It's like a snapshot. If this was like a film, you'd film like this whole scene or whatever, and then but in a comic, because it's static, you're just picking like the perfect frame from like that piece of video and using it as your panel. Like that's how I describe it. Where a lot of the way I've heard it described is like the action happens in the gutters, meaning the space between panels. So but anyways, so by you kind of breaking down each little action, so you show like Eve walking up to the building and it's intimidating, and we see like there's a little bit of a flashback to like the context, which is great because I'm sure like if you drop a chapter, sometimes readers need like a little bit of like what happened last time. It's been like a while since I last read, so that's always good to do. And then we go to like the flashback where he's worrying about like thinking about like the article and how well it did and stuff, just like setting up context. So I thought that was fine. But then we go to like he walks into like the reception area and he talks to the assistant, and then he goes to the elevator and we see him pressing the elevator button, and then he's waiting for the elevator, and then he sees the door opens and he sees the assistant and the girl he met earlier. And then we get into like a conversation with the two in the elevator. But I don't know. I just found that it... I don't know. I don't know if it's just like a me thing, but I did find like I wish it had been condensed just like a smidge, like maybe like half a page or something. Meaning like one of these like long rectangles being like a page. I know it's a scrolling comic, so it's different than just like strictly like a book comic page. But yeah, I wish it had just been condensed a little bit. It felt a little bit slow for me. So I think you need to find a way to like keep that tense build up and keep that suspense of like finding the answer to this mystery of like the gifts. But yeah, but I think it could be condensed a smidge. I enjoyed a lot of the dialogue. It was very interesting to learn about like the relationships between these characters, because like in the earlier chapter you had Eve meeting I keep calling her the girl, but I know she's like a I guess I'm misgendering him because he's a guy who cross-dresses. Yeah, like just a smidge, not shortening it like so much that it's like you lose the build up. But anyways, yeah, so it was interesting seeing like, oh, so this character who I thought was like a random meeting is like connected to like the love interest and his work. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'd be curious to see more how like these relationships like the figuring out the relationship between everyone. Don't worry about misgendering. I changed the character, so take it at face value. Okay. Okay. Thank you. But anyway, so yeah, so we see this girl who we met earlier. Yeah, and she has this thought of like, oh, so this is like the boss's new like crush. And I was thinking like, oh, maybe is there like relationship between this girl and the boss where and I think she had like a little bit of a crush on Eve, so I'm curious about like how this is going to shape up, and I think there's lots of room for like some good conflict. So that's great. I also really loved the little moment where they're like, I bet the boss is only going to like keep him around for a week, and they make a bet. I thought that was a really cute touch. And it says a lot about like the love interests and what he's like, where he seems to just mess around with people, and then, you know, it's that rich playboy kind of idea of a character. So I'll be curious to see how it plays out, especially because Eve seems very like down to earth. Isn't gonna get swept up by his big romantic gestures, like sending all the gifts. He's like the first person to return the gifts. So yeah, so I think it's an interesting like an interesting conflict between the characters, where I feel like maybe Eve can open up to like romance and indulging in like luxury stuff, maybe kind of like letting loose a little bit, that kind of thing. I'm not exactly sure where Eve's arc is going character-wise, and then I can definitely see with the love interest, him, I don't know, I guess learning to love, but being in a long-term relationship potentially, because it seems like his problem is that he goes through people quickly. Which is like classic romance plot. We love it. We're here for it. But anyways, the characters are all awesome. I think they're really fun to read about. Art-wise, yeah, so I think like I mentioned about the panels feeling like a few too many, I think condensing them will help with some of the issues I was seeing. And the issue I'm seeing is it's a lot of similar panels over and over again. It is difficult because you're dealing with scenes where there's lots of like back and forth talking. And so it can be a lot of just like a close-up of Eve's face, a close-up of, is it Miss Irina? Is she the assistant? But the assistant's face. And then same with like the love interest and Eve and stuff. Just lots of like similar back and forth throughout. So by condensing some of the stuff, I think you'll be able to find ways to make the like bring more differentiation between your panels, and I think that will also help with like pacing and keeping things visually interesting. There are lots of places where I think you do a really good job with showing like different ways to frame things. Like for example, I love this bit where he is going up in the elevator and we see his reflection. That's like a really... I honestly wish that panel was bigger. It feels like a throwaway line to just be like kind of cute and funny, which it is. But I think it says something that he's stepping into this elevator. Eve seems like a very like down to earth. Yeah, he's this very like down to earth kind of guy, and he's not impressed by like all this like big shiny stuff. Or maybe not impressed, but like not used to this big shiny stuff. So like showing him standing in this big shiny elevator where he feels very like small in comparison to like all this glamour, and we're just seeing his reflection in it, and he can be sitting there kind of like stunned and amazed. Like, for one, it sets up setting. It shows like how glamorous this place is. I feel like it creates this like sense of like being out of his depth, I guess. Stepping into this like new world with like Mr. Evans. But I think like playing with your set that way, like I'd love to see more of that. Because whenever you do it, it's like Chef kiss, so good. And like, I do really like this panel where he's like clicking the button and you can see like the hesitation and trepidation. Like, that's awesome. I love when Mr. Evans steps in and you see him like looking up at him to show how like imposing he is, especially since we've like set up all this scenery of like, there's this super tall building. Love the cute little face on it, by the way. But yeah, but there's this tall building, there's this receptionist desk that's like big and intimidating, there's the elevator, like, and then to have him show up and it's just like looking at him from below, it's like, oh my god. It just sets up his character and his world really well. Hello, Augustine. But yeah, so there's lots of great framing. I just want to see like more of it. More cool framing, please. Yeah, I think that would be my main feedback. Did you have any questions in particular that you were looking for? Because I know you said general stuff. But yeah, let me know if you have any specific questions. I think a lot about the dialogue placement, and I tend to draw the same panels to just space out my wording. Okay, that's interesting. I think that's a good technique to place your bubbles early, because especially in a scrolling comic, it is important to like have the right spacing between your lettering, or between your speech bubbles. So I would say, Hi, AZ. Yeah. I don't want to give the reader a wall of text. Yeah, totally. I think you have a good thought process there. And I think that's like a good way to look at it. Yeah, I think just you need to be more conscious of like the panel and the text placement need to like work in tandem. So like, yeah, I would say just keep the same kind of amount of care that you're putting into your like text bubbles placement. Like, keep that in mind for like the content of your paneling. And I think you'll go so far because you already have the right idea for so much. Yeah, it's always important to like, okay, you don't have to do this for every panel. I think it would get ridiculous and you'll definitely get quicker with it no matter what. But when you're working on one of your panels, always think like, what is the most important piece of information I'm getting across with this? So like, is it that Mr. Evans is intimidating? Is it that Eve feels nervous? Like, am I showing how glamorous this room is? Am I showing, I don't know, someone is shocked or this important document that they're holding? Like, always think like, what's the emotion? What's like the atmosphere? And what's the most important piece of information? And kind of like build it out from there. Yeah. And then the more important panels, because sometimes, like, obviously not every panel is as important as, they're not all of equal importance. I mean, so yeah, you'll have your ones that you put more kind of focus on. But anyways, yeah. Yeah. Did you have any other questions? My tablet is weird. No worries, no worries. Thanks for the critique. I've been stuck this month. It was all I could push out. You did amazing. Putting this much out in a month? Like, oh my god. I could never. Okay. So no, you did amazing. Thank you so much for submitting. Okay, so AZ is here. How how about I do Nat's piece, and then I can hand off to Bones, and then Bones can do Nat's and AZ's, and then I can come back and I'll finish up the art stuff. Okay. Nat, my friend, who I don't think is here. But hopefully you can watch this after, and let me know if you have any questions. Okay. Where are your notes? Right, so this is the start of Orla's fight. Since this is the third fight in a row, the idea is to use the commentators and character reactions to shorten how long the fight is page-wise. Okay, gotcha. So you're trying to put it in without it taking up a lot, because there's been a lot of fights, which I think is fine. I think it's fine to have lots of fights at this point in the competition, because that's what it's like been building up to, and that's like where we're at. But anyways, I understand what you're saying. So yeah, so I think like I said, like I say in all my critiques for you, Nat, your paneling is like awesome. Like I find overall the action is very easy to read. There's lots of good like tension and reactions, and yeah, it's just it's always fun to read. It's always really energetic. Your panels are always awesome. So yeah, I'll get my my typical stuff out of the way. Yeah, so again, I found this fight really fun. Lots of good back and forth between Orla and the competitor. Kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I think just up until this point, Orla has always been very, like, she's a very competent competitor. Like, I remember in some of the early battles and challenges, like, she seemed bored doing it. So it was very interesting having, like, in this last stage of the competition, having, like, an opponent kind of get one over on her a little bit and seeing her struggle. I thought that was really cool. Like, a really good touch to kind of keep the stakes high, where you're wondering, like, oh, is she gonna get through here? I feel like she kind of has some plot armor, because it's definitely leading to Alia and Orla fighting at the end. Like, I mean, who knows? Maybe you'll pull a plot twist and things will be different. But that's what it feels like it's leading to. But still, you don't want it to be boring and too played out. So I appreciate like the conflict in this chapter, or in this scene at least. The one thing I would say, so I love the action kind of following this page, like page 4 in this document, where Orla does her attack, and then the opponent like morphs, like not morphs, but like, what's the word? Like teleports into the tree kind of to protect himself. Like I love all this, where like we really get the scene. We show her magic like going off. We see him react and kind of get the upper hand and use his magic, and she's shocked and sees him. You see him being all cheeky and waving from the tree. Yeah, I love that part. It's so good, so well paced. And then we kind of see like the reactions after that, where she's like looking for him and jumping away and stuff. I also really like this bit where she's like, get your own phone. I thought that was so cute. So anyway, so I love that part. I found the pages before it were a little confusing, and the reason they're confusing is because they're very close in. So I love this first page. We have the announcer, we have them standing off. I love the little reactions of their close-ups. And then we see like the big arena and them in comparison to each other. Like I love this first like page here, and we see the grandma on the stage, or in the seats, and yeah, we see them rearing up to fight, and it's like very tense, well set up. And after that, it feels very tight. It's not so bad for the commentary. Yeah, and I think this shot of Orla kind of revving up also works, like a intense look on her face as her magic kind of builds. But here, I found very confusing. This page here, we see her like blast of magic, it looks like, and he's dodging, but it's just so tight in. I can't tell what is happening. If I were you, I'd probably combine these top 3 panels into something a bit more pulled out. We could see like her magic coming at him, and then we see him like dodging out of the way. It could be in 2 panels, it could be in 1 panel, depending on how you want to do it, but here it just feels really close and it's hard to parse. And I do like the movement you captured here, where we see her raise the staff and like slam it down to do this like big piece of magic after. However, again, it's just it's so close up. I'd love to see a reaction from her with him dodging. It just feels like it's missing something kind of in between these 2 pieces. Where I'd love to see, like, she's like, oh, well, heck, that didn't work. Let's try this. And then she pulls out this big, like, whirlwind power move kind of thing. So yeah, like I said, pull that out a bit, maybe combine some panels. And I'd love to see a reaction there. And hopefully that wouldn't add too much on, because I know you want to keep this a little bit shorter, page-wise. And I'm having the same problem with these 2 panels here, where she's, like, looking for him in the tree. And then swings away. These 2 panels in particular, they just feel very flat, and they feel like they're very, again, it's so many close-ups, it's hard to get, like, an idea of, like, where everyone is in relationship to each other. I think they just need some variation in, like, camera placement, just to help with like clarity. Because when she's like up in the tree looking down, like we get a better scale of things. And then yeah, and I just give the same advice for the last bit here, where again, things are feeling very close up. I'd love to see more pulled out shots to understand what's going on a bit more. Obviously there'll be more once you have more pages drawn, but yeah. That would be my advice on the action. But overall, yeah, amazing work. Gosh, Kuroe, how dare you sleep? How dare? After I pushed the stream back, like 3 days, how dare you not be here immediately? Anyways, so Nat, that is my advice. I'm gonna pass it over to Bones. And AZ, get ready, because you're up after that. Bones, I gave you Nats, I just did Nats.
Howdy. Oh my goodness. Small boy. How's it going? How is it going, kids? How do I... Okay, I'm alive. One sec. I can't brain think with this music. I will put it up for you guys and down for me, guys. Is this my Coke? Cool. We got Kuroe here, we got AZ, BattleBoxCat, I'm assuming that's who you were talking to. It's you Coke now. Yeah, it is. Sorry, I didn't open open link. Whoa, no. Don't show that. Okay. Sorry, I just need to make sure I have AZs open here. Right, I was gonna talk about oh, whoa. How am I talking so loud? Oh, because it's set to Ursula. Okay, no. I just was peeking the microphone already. Cause I'm a loud boy. Okay, that's a bit better. It's a little more reasonable slightly. Stupid. Oh god. I am a mess. Whoa. What am I doing? Ah. Oh god. How did I? Why are there so many tabs? I'm so lost. Okay, I'm gonna just close this. I don't need it to open. I'm a face cam. Okay, we're. Nothing. Now it's too quiet. Way too quiet. It was better before. Maybe your headphones? Am I not hearable anymore? Hello? 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 Marco. Oh god, they can't hear me. It's okay now? Okay, yeah, I turned it a little too low at first. It was like a way too loud. Like I was hitting the red too much, so it was clipping. But now I am I'm fine. Okay, we're good. Okay. Alright, so I was gonna talk about Nats, but I closed it and I can't find it. Ah. I'm sure Ursula talked a bunch. Did you talk a bunch? Because I didn't have much to say, right? I don't know if Ursula told you that. No. I just don't have much to say because it is 7 pages of action. And they're all good. Nicely paced and stuff. It's just a lot of, like, art, I imagine. Because, yeah. It's cool to see. Oh, you're waving at the bird. I thought my mom was coming up, but I was like, oh god. Yeah, I don't know if you have any questions for me about the story stuff, Nat, that you needed answered. But yeah, looks good. I like it. It's moving at a good clip. It's a well-paced action scene. The joys of streaming. The joys of screaming. Oh, I'm gonna get a headache because I didn't drink my Coke fast enough. Ursula's like, move on. No, she's not. That's what I say to Ursula in the background while she's helping you guys too much because she's too sweet. Okay, I'm assuming Nat is not here, right? Oh, I was waiting for them to answer. Okay, well, I'm just gonna go to AZ then, and Nat can ask me questions later. Oh, okay. It's good. I liked it. There you go. Done. Let's go. Woo. I read it. I read it in the shower this morning, as I always do. It's the joy of text-to-speech. Just blast it. Think. Yeah. Where is this? It was a lot of well-paced scenes. I know it's kind of like all over the place right now in like where everything is gonna go, so it's hard to say anything about that, and I'm sure you know that. But all of like the like internal scene pacing stuff is pretty good. Like even the places where you yada yada, I can tell that that'll be a good spot to do said yada yada-ing. I liked the stuff with Sarah and Des. I liked yeah, I think you're getting the hang of scene pacing. I think so. Yeah, I like the stuff with Sarah and Des. I like more concretely kind of defining like what Sarah's going through with the whole Amos dying thing. I think it was like a lot more clear in this. I know you were saying some parts were clunky, but I didn't find too much to be clunky about it. And I know there was like a part, right, when Des was getting home where you were considering like whether or not Sarah should see Des kiss Jay, and I think that smooth dialogue, but if you say it works, then I'll take it. Smooth dialogue. Yeah, no, I mean like the dialogue was pretty smooth for me. I think it was that it was clunky in the right ways. Like, it's alright, I'm getting distracted here. But I find it's nice when you don't clean up Dez's dialogue too much, because he's kind of all over the place, and it works well for that. I'm not sure, yeah, if I want Sarah to know if Des is a big gay boy yet. Yeah, I would say that in the part where you were wondering whether or not they should kiss, I am on the side of not having them kiss at that point, just because, like you said, there's like too much going on. But I think it's more an issue of you're gonna get like because you want to show that Sarah's disappointed in him, right, when he shows up. And if you have them kiss, it's going to be unclear whether or not she's disappointed about his drunken behavior or if he's gay. And I think you're going to get those things muddled up if you do it at that point. Because it's already kind of a subtle thing going on, and yeah, adding the kiss will just make it a little even more like unclear. Yeah. Yeah, and on the same point about like not knowing about like where the gay stuff should come up, I liked both of the scenes that you did. Like there was like the rewind and do a retake. I think they both work. It almost feels like the second scene is something to kind of build up to, and maybe not a beginning point, but it really depends on like where you want the arc to go and where you want it to start. Like is like depending on whether or not he blows up about all his feelings early on or builds up to it, it'll kind of establish him in one or two ways, right? Because he's either he's either someone who avoids things until they hit that big point. Yeah, he's either avoiding his thoughts about his family until he reaches a breaking point that he can't, or he's quick to get upset about it, I guess. Because, yeah. Because if you go with the second version of it, it shows that he's quick to get upset about this. And that it's very fresh and stingy, as opposed to the first one, which is a more avoidance thing. Which can definitely lead into the second one if pushed more and more. But that kind of establishes a bit of a arc thing going on. I liked all the kerfuffles at the beginning. There's a lot of good kerfuffling. I'm still thinking about how much and how soon I'm gonna reveal why Des isn't the big huge mess that he is. Yeah, I think it's hard to say because like I've read so much, but I think that in this draft, in the scenes that I'm getting a very good like sense that things are messed up, and it makes sense that things are going to be messed up with Des, and it's under the surface, and it is definitely a good like intrigue sort of character mystery type thing going on. I always worry about kerfuffle scenes. They can be tough to choreograph. Oh yeah, it's true. No, but they were good kerfuffle scenes. They had the right amount of everything going all over the place, and it was a little difficult to follow, not because of you, but because my text-to-speech decided it was French halfway through and decided to pronounce Des as Day, and also J. So I was like, well, why? Like, why now are you deciding to do this to me? But even with the random French interlude, I was able to keep up, which was good. Yeah, it's a good balance of humor and tension. I agree. Des is good at comic relief in the best worst ways. I like it. I like that kind of comic relief because it serves like a character purpose. I don't know. I think it's a type of character that I like to read about and write about. Highly relatable, perhaps. Best versus... That's exactly what I want for Des. He uses humor because he's kind of pathetic. Yeah. It's a way to avoid things. Yeah, that's good. And it works for pacing, too. It's such a useful type of character. Do you have any other questions and concerns and thoughts? I think if I think of anything else, I'll send them to you. Thanks, Bones. That's great feedback. No problemo. I get to leave now. Whoo! Vacation for a month.
Okay, thank you. Hello. No, don't run not away. Kato. Hi.
Stop. Stop.
Our
Falcons do sound like parrots, though.
They do. Last night we were walking and there was like a little falcon. Kestrel. Which is a type of falcon apparently. Didn't know. Love the dress. Thank you. Oh, hello, Cole Foxwell. Long time no see. Oh, anyways, we saw this kestrel flying around. We didn't know what it was at the time, but it was making these like high-pitched, like trilly, peeping, shrill cries. Like it was an alarm call. Like it must have seen a predator or something. I don't know. And we were like, what is that? So we like wrote down all the things we could think of. It had like an anchor shape to the wings and a long tail and how the call sounded, and then Bones looked it up and it was a kestrel, we think. And apparently they're related to parrots distantly. And because when I saw it, I was like, oh, that sounds like a parrot. Like, did someone's parrot get out? So there we go. Hi, Beeps. You gonna come down here? No. She's like, there's food. I'm ignoring you, Mom. All right. So back to critique. Okay, so we've looked at BattleBox. We've looked at Nat. We've looked at AZ. Pigment, I see you're here. Would you like to go next? Because I know you have break. If you'd like to go later.
Interesting fun.
Sorry?
You said the interesting fun fact wrong.
You said it?
You said it.
I said it? What is it? Come here. Come to the mic.
It's just interesting because falcons are closely related to parrots more so than they are hawks.
There we go. I'm sorry, biologists. Please forgive me. You'll go? Okay, awesome. All right. Let's go. What did you say for your critiques? By the way, I'm glad you're feeling better. It sounds like you were having a rough time. Or at least I hope you're feeling better. Right. So you wanted first to look at this page. That I remember you had at the sketching phase and you were struggling with some of the composition stuff. Much better? Awesome. That's good to hear. Okay. So, I think composition-wise, I think like the changes you've made are fantastic. I think there's very good flow between all the different panels. Because like a page like this where it's like 4 equal panels can be difficult. Just because having everything be like equal quarters or equal pieces can be like, even if it's like halves, it could be thirds, whatever. Thirds is a little easier, but like halves and quarters can be very difficult composition wise because it can come off as like flat. But I think you did a very good job with like keeping the flow moving and having like a focal point for each panel while still keeping that like balanced composition that comes with like cutting it into quarters. Also, is my mic okay? Can you guys hear me? I think so. But anyways, yeah. So good balance, good composition. I think you made some placement changes and it's looking great. I especially like the little books for the Goddess of Knowledge. That's fun. I'm good? Okay. The one thing I would say, personally, I'm not sure if you should... Okay, sorry. I don't know if I like the white background to the panels. Because I think there's so much great, like, vibrant color going on with all the characters and with, like, the gold gilding on the panels. I would love to see... Like, it doesn't have to be black. You could use some of those, like, galaxy purple colors that you've used with, like, the big space goddess. Debating that too. Yeah, because, like, you've got these, like, bright, like, teals and reds and pinks and greens. Like, their color schemes work so well for, like, a dark background, at least in this page's context. Where I'd love to see just, like, yeah, just see these on a dark background. You could keep, like, the kind of cloudy texture, and you could play around. You might need to play around with the contrast of, like, the kind of captions. You maybe need to switch it where maybe it needs to be, like, a light kind of speech bubble with dark lettering, but, you know, you can play around with that. But yeah, I think it really lends itself well to, like, a dark background, especially the first goddess, because you've got these, like, little souls, these little soul flame light things. Like, it would be really cool to see those glowing. And same with the moon. Like, yeah, so much great opportunity. Honestly, I think that would be my only feedback for this, because, like, composition looks great. I think once, like, the background color is changed, I think it'll pop a lot. Did you have any other questions about this one? Like, was there anything else you wanted feedback on for it? That's good. Awesome. So we'll do the next one. So this is a D&D character. They're a lava elemental who lost their memories, but they have a greater purpose. And they're a blacksmith. Oh, and they use like the opening in the chest plate to do, like, forging and stuff. Cool. And they're rarely seen out of armor. They have a fear of catching things ablaze. Okay. If they do take it off. Okay, so this first image is in the armor and then out of the armor. Gotcha. They're cool. I love that idea. Okay, so then you're looking for general critique, tips on rendering the lava, and anything else. Okay. Amazing. But yeah, such a cool concept. Okay, so, like, their body is, like, all lava and fire. I love the hair. It looks like, yeah, just, like, lava flows, like, almost like, like in video games or, like, fantasy settings, they'll have, like a, you know, like a forge or, like, a volcano setting, and there'll be, like, waterfalls of, like, magma? Lava? I know one of them is above ground and one's below ground. I don't remember which one is which. Bones literally told me a few days ago and I don't remember. But anyways, yeah. So the hair is really cool. And yeah, and I love the bit of, like, the kind of, like, rock bits on top of, like, their skin, as, like, the lava kind of cools a little bit. Like, that's really cool. I would almost be interesting. Magma is below? Okay. Okay. But yeah. But anyways, so as for, like, the rendering of it, I would be interested in seeing for these like little bits of like the cooled lava, magma, whatever it is. I would be interested in seeing like some more almost like texture, like more 3D texture to them. Like it all looks very, it almost looks like tattoos as you have it right now, where like even if they are shifting around on their skin, like it just feels very flat. I would be interested in seeing like maybe some of it like popping up off of the skin a little bit, just adding like a little bit of like raised 3D-ness to show it's like the like their skin or their body cooling a little bit as it touches air. You could also play around with like extremities cooling. I don't know if you actually want to do this. This was just like my thought, because like, you know, with your body there are parts of it where like you get less circulation, so it can be cooler. Commonly it's like, you know, fingers, toes, your nose, you know, extremities. They get cooler compared to like your core, which runs a bit hotter. It would be interesting to see like maybe like around the hands and fingers. I mean, you already have some on like their nose and stuff and their forehead. Like there's more of that kind of like rock texture. But anyways, that's just a thought. But yeah, I love the texture. I love the glow going on. Lots of great just use of like shadow and light and like this glowing effect to really give everything structure. I like they feel almost like I know it's like fire and like melted rock and metal and stuff, but I love the use of the green. It makes them feel almost like radioactive. I don't know. But it's really cool. It's really cool. It definitely feels very like hot and like fiery. You know? But yeah, really great use with your color. I love how your highlights are like a little desaturated but very light, and then you have these very like neon-y like colors as like your mid-tones almost, and then as you get darker you get these very like saturated kind of blues in here. It's really cool. Really great work with the color. And yeah, and I like this bit of grain texture you have on everything. Wanted to pick a color other than red? Totally know what you mean. And it's very cool with the armor. I love seeing through like the gaps in the armor, seeing like the glow of like their flame. And I love that idea of like using their chest plate. Like it could probably open and they could use it for like forging and fire and stuff. Like that's a really cool idea. I think I'm finding the lower half of the armor a little plain. You've got so much cool detail up top, because you've got all the cool detail around like the chest piece, where obviously like the upper chest piece probably opens upward, and then this middle piece opens out. And you've got these like really cool like shoulder pieces, really interesting like bracers on the arms and stuff, really cool details on the gauntlets. Whereas I find like the legs are a little bit plain. I'd love to see more of that like little detail work throughout to make it feel more cohesive. And there's a really interesting contrast going on, because when they're out of their armor, there's this like long flowing hair and this like crazy glow that's going on, but in the armor they're so like contained. Like everything is very round and very like compact. Yeah, it's just an interesting contrast to see. Because I was almost thinking like, I don't know, I'd love to see some of this kind of like flowiness come through, but that might not work for the story you're going for. Especially because if they have their hair out, then it's going to be creating fire, and that's like one of their fears. A cape. I don't think a cape's a good idea when you're dealing with fire. After they grow out of their fear of burning stuff, yeah, that would be good for showing character growth through the design. But yeah, no, totally. I'm trying to think. Like, I'm trying to think of like interesting details to put in. You could do some interesting thing with like maybe like a leather kind of apron type thing. Because I'm imagining like a blacksmith probably is using like those heavy leather aprons to kind of protect themselves from flames. Like obviously like Blaze wouldn't need it, but you could possibly bring that in and do something interesting. It would be difficult because the chest piece needs to open, but you could do some interesting stuff with like leather or an apron or I don't know. Those blankets are heavy. Oh no. Well, yeah, they should be, yeah, to put out a fire, right? Yeah, I love this little, with the shoulder pieces, I love this little, like hook going up. It's very, like, reminiscent of, like, licking flame kind of thing. And same with, like, the triangle shapes in the bracers. I wonder if you could bring that in somewhere else a bit more. Because there's this kind of like lighter greeny blue that you use for that, as well as like the details on the face. I think bringing in some of that to the lower half as well would really help. Like maybe adding maybe like some detailing around the ankle, like because I know in some suits of armor they'll have like that kind of like ankle joint piece that's kind of decorative, where they might have like spikes or wings or stuff coming off it. Maybe you could bring in some of that like curved pointy metal bits there. Same around with like the knees and some of this like detailing on the side. Just bringing that in a little bit I think would help. Yeah, and I'd almost like to see more of that kind of glow coming through, because I'm imagining like, even though I mean, the gloves look like they have like fabric underneath. Maybe not fabric, but you know, some kind of magical material. But I'd love to see maybe like where the wrist joint is, seeing some of that light coming through. Yeah, just bringing that in more, I think would be really, really cool. And I'd also love to see the same kind of like color palette and design idea through the hammer as well, because you've got this really cool cohesiveness with like these dark greens and dark blues for the armor, and using these kind of like organic flame triangle-y shapes. I'd love to see that in the hammer a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah, one below the waist, possibly. Yeah, for the apron, I'm assuming. Yeah. Did you have any questions about these? Was there anything I didn't cover? I love that hair. That's so cool. The apron? Okay. Okay. Don't think so? Awesome. Well, thank you for submitting. All right. Who would like to go next? We have Starstia or Starstia. Thanks for all the advice. No problem. Anytime. We have Ink, we have Alice, and we have Kuroe. I know Kuroe is here. Would you like to go next? Can go whenever. We'll do yours. You're here. We're hanging out. Why not? Okay. So... Right. So this is a continuation from, I think, the last submission where you showed off some page, like, thumbnail sketches. Because I remember this last scene where Mackie is standing up to the bully, Honda, that's his name. And yeah, so that scene kind of finishes, and then we go from there, right? Yeah. Okay. And then this leads up to the competition that they're training for. Okay. And the last pages are like a montage compilation kind of thing. Okay. So, I love this transitionary page here, page 22. Because we get like, just like a great establishing shot right at the top. We get a clear view of like where they're going to this like gym. Actually, I don't know if it's a gym or a school, but anyways, this place they're going to train. And I love seeing Mackie show up. He's got his like arm in a cast because Honda broke it. And then his teammates come up and they're like, what the heck happened? Yeah. And I like how he's like all cute and frazzled, and then he gets like kind of cool. He's like set his mind to it. He's like, I'm not afraid anymore. I'm a cool guy. I like that for Mackie. That's really nice. And yeah, and just paneling wise, it's set up really well. I like these two pages, 22 and 23, where you've got this great sense of like a focal panel, which I've talked about before in like videos and stuff, where you have like one panel that kind of like, it tends to take up the most space on the page and it creates the most focus. And it just works really well as a focal point for the page and lets everything kind of cascade out from it. It's just great composition wise. And I really like how you have it here with our establishing shot. That really is that focal point, establishing where we are. And then I really like it where we have the teammate. I think it's the girl who he has a crush on. I can't remember her name now. But yeah, her saying like, I'm gonna dedicate myself to helping you, and like she takes up like the most of the page and is like outside the panel. I think that's just like a nice touch. Akemi, okay. Yes. But yeah, these pages are just so nice. I did find that there were a few pages where things were a little confusing paneling wise. 24 specifically, you have two kind of like vertical sections where it looks like we're supposed to read down this first half, where they're teasing Akemi about like dedicating herself to Mackie, and then we see her reaction and is like, don't put words in my mouth, and then Mackie's blushing and stuff. And I think I'm not sure if the way you have it lined up, if that makes sense, because you have these panels up top, you see these three up top, they're aligned at the bottom. So it's very easy to consider them like a clump of panels that you read together, because I want to read this first panel, and then we see Akemi is like realizing and shocked, and then her saying don't twist my words, which makes no sense because we're missing these like 2 bottom panels. So I think it's, if you're doing that, you have to be like, if you're splitting the page that way where you read down instead of across, you need to be really clear about where your panels are placed and how to read them. I would honestly move these panels around so that these 2 where someone is like heh and then you're declaring your love, move those up top, move the top 2 on the right to the bottom, just to make it less confusing. And just, yeah, you got to be really mindful about that stuff, because it's very easy to get people confused if you haven't used pages like that before. And even then, there's still danger of like confusing people. Your flow really has to be there to make it work, because people tend to read like across the top and then kind of zigzag their way down to the bottom. I put the 2 square panels in the wrong places. Oh, okay, all good. Yeah, I figure they just need a little switcheroo. I would also say in 26, some of these you could... Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I think on some of these pages, I'm noticing it on this, like, these 4 thumbnails in particular, you're doing a lot of, like, cutting things in half. It's not so bad on page 25, because you do have that diagonal. But with 26 and 27, things are very much divided down the middle, where, like, we have this, like, call-out panel, and then we have the reaction, and the apology, like... And it's so halved. And I think if you're going to use this call out where they're being hugged, like, you could almost use the kind of where you have it and then this kind of top third of the page, like fill the space with that, if that makes sense. And you could move the little blushy reaction and the apology down, if that makes sense. And I think that would give you like a better kind of balance, where it's not completely cut in half, because having things halved can feel flat, it can feel kind of boring. But if you shift it around a little, I think you can keep that kind of rule of thirds, creating like more visual interest kind of thing. And then I'd also be careful here where you have 2 top panels and then your bottom 3 panels are cut into like 2 columns, if that makes sense. I might just shift them around so maybe they're not so like left side heavy, because you've had 2 pages already where the main kind of like big focal panels are all on the left. So I might shift things around a little so everything's not so like halved and like heavy stuff on the left. Otherwise your pages might feel too like samey as you go through. Yeah, and I think that's my advice through all of it. Just be careful you're not splitting things in half, and make sure you're shifting up like how your panels are set from page to page. But for the most part, I think you've got really good variation, and like you have larger panels, you have smaller reaction panels. You have a good mix of like close-ups and like pulled out shots to show like action and emotion. I think you do a good job of that. I like all the kind of montage-y shots of like them training and stuff. That works so well for like when you're showing off like these like gymnastic moves. And yeah, and I'm excited to see this last bit where we're showing like the training as it's going through the different months. I think that'll be like a really cool kind of montage paneling stuff. Like, I think that's such a cool idea. The only thing I would say kind of story-wise It does feel a little bit fast to me, and the thing is, like, I don't know the full story. Like, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure where we are in the story. Like, are we late into it? Are we early into it? I gave up on thumbnailing. That spread is just a few squiggle. Listen, you do what you need so that you understand what to draw when you're like sketching it out. I totally understand. I do that too. I'm like, little smiley face. I'll know who this is. Yeah. Near the end, like this is near the end of the story. Oh, it was meant to be a 60-page one-shot. Okay, so then the pacing isn't as fast as I was worried about. Just the comp to go. Okay, gotcha. Okay, then I wouldn't worry too much about the pacing, because I was feeling like it feels like really short between Mackie getting this like arm injury and then getting into training again. But I think if you're doing something so short as like 60 pages, like I think the pacing works for that. One thing I will say pacing wise, I found, so there's this little conversation between Mackie, is it his sister he's talking to? I'm a little fuzzy on the characters, but he's talking to this one girl on his team, and she mentions how they're talking about their crushes, and she's like poking fun at him for not dating Akemi already because they both like each other. And she mentions how she has a crush on someone in his class, and he points out that that's a girl, and they have this really cute thing where he's like, does that change how you feel? And she's like, oh, I don't know, I have to think about it. And like, it's just this really nice interaction between them. His little sister. Okay, I thought so. But yeah, but that was just such a cute scene. I liked how you approached them talking about it, where it's very casual and you get that like, it feels so genuine. Like, I don't know. I've personally had those kind of thoughts where I'm like, is it weird to have a crush on a girl like when you're that age? Like, yeah, it was a really nice sentiment, and like I liked how like non-judgmental like Mackie is about it. It was really good. I did find though that the placement of like the resolution of that, so I really like the setup for it. I like that they're talking and it's like it's doing a few things at once. It's setting up like Mackie's relationship with Akemi and how they have crushes on each other and how everyone can see it and they're not acting on it, and it's setting up that well. And I like how it also sets up the little sister's relationship with this girl she has a crush on. I struggled with ending that one. I didn't want to rush it too much. I think that first scene is well structured, but I find the resolution of the sister's plot is too fast, because it feels like we have that scene where she admits about the crush on the girl, and then I think it's like the very next scene she's like, Mackie, how could you tell that girl that I like her? Now I have to deal with it, and she likes me and asks me out. It felt just very rushed. If I were you, I'd place that later, or you might want to split it up even more. It's hard because it's a subplot in such a short comic. I know you probably don't want to spend like too much time on it. You probably want to focus on like the competition and like Mackie's arc, but it feels resolved too quickly. I think you could have some interesting conflict where she comes back and she's like, Mackie, how could you tell that girl I have a crush on her? Now, like, I was still thinking about it, and have some conflict between Mackie and his sister, where maybe they're like a little like touchy and distant after that. Like they're in a bit of a fight where he thought he was doing the right thing maybe, and she wasn't ready. And maybe that could like, it could cause conflict where like he's getting in this rhythm, he's feeling really good, and then he gets to the competition and his sister is mad at him and he's worried about his arm injury, and it could create like self-doubt and stuff and kind of feed into his arc a little bit. And then after the competition you could resolve the thing where the sister comes back and she's like, well, I talked to my crush again, and she asked me out and invited me to the music thing that like she never invites anyone to. Like, I think just like stretching it out a little bit and like keeping the conflict there a little longer, I think would serve you really well. And I think what you're saying about Maki and Akemi getting together after the competition, I think that really works, like, plot beat wise, because yeah, you've set up this thing where like they're on a team together, there's like romantic tension between them where they clearly like each other, and the competition just feels like it's like the crescendo of the story, and then after that they like have the resolution to their relationship kind of plot. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing with plot and conflict. Torture your characters as long as possible. That's what makes a great story. If I've learned anything, just like as the story goes on, something always has to get worse for your character. So even if like he's training and getting better at his sport, you can have little wins, but overall there has to be like bad things happening, if that makes sense. Like they get to the final round of the competition, but they're really tired and emotionally they've been broken down and stuff, and it's like, will they be able to win it? Like it has to feel like things aren't always going to go their way. But anyways, yeah, I think just spreading out those arcs a little bit could help you. So it's not like you set up a problem and then solve it immediately. You want to set up a problem, it gets worse, and then you solve it. Yeah. So there you go. I think you just need to shift some of the plot beats around. I was gonna give him food poisoning, but that's easier. That could work. You could do all of it. He could go to the competition. He has food poisoning. It feels like you're setting up something with the arm where he's got this injury, and it feels like it's not healing fast enough, and I'm wondering if he's gonna have a hurt arm in the last leg of the competition where it's giving out on him, but he's still, you know, maybe he manages to like do the move despite the broken arm. I don't know, because his team believes in him or something. I don't know. I'm not sure what your themes are you're going for, but yeah, but pile all the bad things on and still have him triumph. I think that'll be a really great like underdog story, like a great way to end it. Like just make everything horrible, but he still manages to make it through because his friends believe in him. Yeah. Did you have any questions about any of the pages? Like, was there anything you were struggling with? Was there anything you wanted, like, my opinion on in the panels? Yeah, just let me know. That's great. Awesome. Well, good luck with the rest of this. This is looking so good. Okay. Who would like to go next? We have Alice, we have Ink, and we have Starstia. Who, I don't know if you guys are here. I don't know if I've seen you. I'll change those things, try to figure out how to show the competition. Heck yeah. You can do it. You got this, Kuroe. You got this. You can go whenever? Well, you are here. So I think I will cover yours. My friend Alice B. I don't know if I've seen you in a while. I hope you're doing well. I like this one too. It's so nice. Okay, so there's a little drawing made in fresco of your current D&D character. His name is Joanna. Oh my god, her name is Joanna. I can't read, I'm sorry. She's a fighter and happens to be a skeleton. Love her. Hence the mask and being fully clothed. A general critique on this as I'm out of practice. Oh, well, you did amazing. Okay, amazing. I am alive. Bless. I'm glad. Okay, so right, so she's a skeleton, she's a fighter, she's a cutie patootie. Okay, so I love the colors. I know you've, in the past, I know you've done this as well, and it's always something I've really enjoyed, but you do this really, you have this really great use of, like almost like gradient mapping. I don't know what the term for it aside from like what the filters are in like Adobe, but like just using like various different kind of colors throughout. Like instead of putting down for say like the pants, like these are just like, I'm assuming the base fabric for them is like this reddish pink, but I like how you've brought in like oranges and teals and purples throughout to give like texture and vibrancy, instead of just using like a single flat color and then like adding highlight and texture and shadow on top. And yeah, and you've done it throughout like the background, all the different parts of the character. Yeah, I just really like it. It creates a lot of vibrancy and it really brings, you know, you've got several different colors going through, but they're spread out through it so much that they all are like cohesive, and yeah, it just adds so much vibrancy to it. It's really awesome. And it's something I really like about your work. But yeah, the colors are so cohesive. I like how you have just something like bridging all of these different colors together. You have these very like vibrant blues that kind of lead into teals, which lead into green, which lead into yellow. You got some like creamy yellows in there, and on the other side, like you can also have those like, really like vibrant blues lead into these like indigos, and then these like violets, and that leads into like the reddy pink stuff. Like it's just really well bridged between all the colors, and they feel very cohesive. And I think you do a good job with your contrast as well. So I like in the background, everything is very pastel-y and it's a little washed out, at least in comparison to like your foreground colors on your character. Which suits it really well because we have this character who's being kind of like lit from the back. So they're like the darkest object in the canvas, and like stand out really well against the background. And I like how you have this like edge lighting going on, so we can really see that they're being lit from behind with this like moon sun kind of shape going on. But anyways, but yeah, and then we get like these really dark silhouette-y shadows like on them. And yeah, and just the lighting is awesome. Contrast is great. I especially love it kind of like around their arm and torso, where, especially like down here where you've got these just like really, really dark, nice shadows going on. That really make these like vibrant pinks and magentas stand out. I love the like just like the way you've carved out the different shapes and shadows and like the folds. And you really leaned into the contrast. Like you didn't lose your contrast at all. It's really great to see. I think I would like to see, like if you were to update this more, I think around the face needs a little bit of that vibrancy that you have like on the pants and in the body, where like you have this like intense like pink, red, magenta on the pants, and you have this like intense like blue, violet stuff going on in the tunic, and then the hood and the mask, they're a lot more mid-tone, if that makes sense. I'd like to see some of that vibrancy brought in. It's a little muddied up here. Because I feel like with a character portrait, I mean, it depends on your intent, honestly. Like, but typically, like, you'll probably want the focus to go to the face of the character. Obviously, we're going to look at the body of the character and the gesture and stuff as it's part of the composition. But yeah, but more focus on the face. And I think that it would especially work because you have these like beautiful flowers that she's holding. And like, I feel like the focus should be like her face and the flowers. And then kind of lead you back to that through the composition. But I feel like because of the color contrast issue that I'm seeing in the face, like my eyes want to go down to this like dark vibrant stuff down here instead of looking at the face. So I think if you honestly just gave like the hood the same treatment as the pants, where you really brought in those like vibrant dark reds and pinks, and then same with the mask, like you could bring in some really vibrant teals and stuff, or some really like bright oranges like you have on the plants. Something like that, just to really bring that vibrancy and get people looking at it. The flowers themselves have great contrast, like they have that vibrancy to them, and I think it's missing in the hands as well. I think the same issue is happening where it gets a little muddied, and I think if you just brought in that vibrancy that you have on the pants, like, and that you could put in the hood, like, it'd be perfect. It'd be beautiful. But yeah, so much great movement, texture, the colors are awesome. I love just the curve that you have in the flowers. It really just complements, it like echoes, you got these nice like echoes going through with like the moon and the curves. Yeah, just so nice. I also like the gravity that you're really showing. I notice it on like the little like belt tie she has, this little scarf that like folds down, as well as like the gravity on the tunic, as well as like the flowers falling. Like, yeah, it's just there. She feels very like real, you know, she's on an abstract background, but you can tell she's like sitting on the ground. It's great. Did you have any questions in particular? I hope my rambling was helpful. Oh, one more thing. There is a bit of a tangent happening with the circle of the moon and the boots, where I think because it's lining up with like the tongue of the boot, it's just creating like a weird visual illusion, where it makes it look like the color differentiation like is creating the shape of like the boot. So if I were you, I would just shift things around a little bit so it's not quite sitting on that like curve of the boot, if that makes sense. That's a little thing though. I rendered the hood first and had a hard time matching the hood to the pants. Gotcha. I know, because you'd probably have to paint over it and really do a lot of like color matching to make sure you keep like your shapes. I think you could do it. I couldn't figure why I kept looking at the pants. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely the saturation and the contrast. But yeah, you could do it. You got this. Yeah. But yeah, let me know if you have anything I didn't cover that you'd like answered. I used a lot of opacity. So if I just grabbed a color, it got super muddy. Okay. fair. Yeah, I know, it's really hard with blending. It can be really difficult. As a professional, how do you find motivation to make art outside of work? It's really hard. That's actually something I've been struggling with a lot. Making art outside of work. It kind of I think it helps to have a schedule, or like a set plan. Like make time for it, if that makes sense. Because I think, yeah, because if you're working full time or anything, you know, you could be doing multiple jobs, obviously. But yeah, if a lot of your time is going into your work, especially if it's really physical work, it can be really hard to come home and then sit down and try to do creative work because you're probably tired. And like maybe you just want to relax. Like, I don't know, this is how I felt, where I come home and like I just do office work, but still I'm like, I come home and I'm like, I've done like creative work all day, I'm tired, I just want to sit and like play a game or watch TV or whatever. But yeah, but I think it helps to just carve out a little bit of time and schedule it in. Because I find when I do that, because for me personally right now, I have a day where I go hang out with Bones' mom, because she's also an artist, and we have a little watercolor evening where like every Wednesday we get together and we just spend like a couple hours working on some paintings together. And some days I'm like, I don't want to do this, I'm tired, I don't want to paint. But I still show up, and I find every time I start, I get a little bit done, even if it's just like 10 minutes of work and we spend most of the time just chatting. Like, I still got 10 minutes of work done. And that's set up every week, and unless something comes up, we always do it. So yeah, so even if you're just by yourself, and it can be hard if you don't have like an accountability partner, but yeah, just say like 10 minutes when I get home from work. I'll sit down and I'll sketch something in fresco or in my sketchbook. And then once those 10 minutes are over, you're like, well, I'm done. I did some doodles. You know, maybe they don't look very good, but at least I did some art. And some days you'll start drawing and you'll be like, the 10 minutes is up, and you're like, I want to still keep going. I'm having fun. And then you'll keep going. And yeah, and I think it's really tough when you don't want to. Like, that motivation piece is so difficult, but I think just scheduling it and showing up will get you really far. Because sometimes, like, those drawings that you sit down for your 10 minutes and you're like, this is awful, this looks terrible, sometimes you'll come back like a week or two later and you'll be like, oh, this is really neat, like, why didn't I like this? Yeah, I think that's my advice. I hope it's not disappointing. Because half the time, like, yeah, it's not being motivated, it's just like doing it. Yeah. I'm in a writer's club. Most of us struggle to actually write. It's hard. It's so hard. You have to like schedule it, and sometimes it feels like pulling teeth, but like you get it done. I also have a writer's group. It's like a group of friends that Bones and I hang out with, and like every time we hang out, we don't write. We just hang out. I feel similar about making art, even if I have people to share it with. It's so hard. I totally know what you mean. I personally have been struggling with this a lot, where I'm like, I don't want to do it. Every time I sit down to draw, I'm like, this is going to be terrible. But yeah, but it always turns out okay. And I've made some stuff, even when I hated making it, it turned out all right. So, yep. It's the pain of art. Yeah, I know. Because sometimes, yeah, I'm like, I want to wait for that, like, that feeling of like, I really want to do art. And I hate when I get that feeling of like, I really want to make this. I have this really cool idea and I can't because I'm like, I don't know, I'm driving, or like, I'm at work. So I should probably do my work. I probably shouldn't work on my personal stuff. But yeah, and then you get home and you're like, I don't want to do anything. I was motivated until I sat down. So yeah, it's difficult. No problem. Thank you for submitting. It was really good to see you. I'm glad you're doing well. Okay, so now we have Ink and Starstia. Are either of you here? I get that feeling at midnight every time. I know! You're like lying in bed and you're like, oh my god, I have this amazing idea. It's nice to stop by. Awesome. All right. If neither of my lovelies shows up, I think I'll start with Starstia. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Please correct me later in Discord. Okay. So, Star. Okay, so you said these are 3 prints. Okay, so the prints are like, you took this and cropped it into three prints. I'm a bit confused. I was really happy with these, but they do not sell at conventions. Could you help figure out why for critique? Oh, that is a really difficult question. So the thing is, I can give you artwork critique, but I don't know if I can help you make it sell more. I've had this exact same problem. I've made pieces that I was so happy with. I thought they were so cute, and I've had no one buy them. And it really sucks because it's like, I really like these, and also I spent money printing them. Hello. So yeah, I wish you were here in the chat to talk about it more, because it could be, because there's so many things that go into like a print selling at a convention, because it could be how many other artists here are selling prints, and where are you placed in the artist alley? Because literally I've been in places where like I'm at the back of the artist alley, and by the time they get to you, they've used all their money, they've bought like 30 prints, and they're like, oh, I don't want to buy one more, even if they really like a piece. So that can factor into it. So yeah, it's a complicated question. So I could help on the art side if you wanted to change something about this, but I don't know about selling. Yeah, that is a really tough one. I'm very sorry that has happened. It's so frustrating. But I love the concept. I love that it's like this big piece, but you've also cut it up into like different prints of each of the characters. I think that's very cool. So I only have a vague understanding of who these are. I know the middle one is Anakin Skywalker. And I'm pretty sure the one on the left is Obi-Wan. And I don't know the lady on the other side. I've seen her in Star Wars art, but I'm not familiar with her character. So I apologize. I don't know her name. But the art of this is super cool. So I love what you're doing with the lighting and the effects. I especially love how you've drawn the characters in the back. Like the lighting on Darth Vader's helmet is so cool. You've done such a good job with showing like the material of the helmet. Hello, welcome. Yeah, you've done such a cool job with the like the color, like this, like, I don't know if it's fire or like, I don't know, space dust stuff, atmosphere stuff in the very background. Yeah, I love how you've got like the reflection of it in the helmet and like just the glossiness you've used to show like the different pieces and the shape. Like, mwah, chef kiss, so nice. And then same with like just the lighting on Obi-Wan back here, where like I love how we get like this like intense red in the hair, and we get some like edge lighting, and we get some like a nice little like dramatic spot on his face, and then he's partly covered in shadow. And then same with this lady here. Like, again, I love the lighting that you've used. I love this like yeah, I just love this like kind of dual lighting you have going on where she's being lit from the front and underneath and then from the back. And we get such like vibrant highlights and like I love the texture on her head. I think that's part of their head for that alien species. But yeah, just amazing work with the lighting. It's so cool. I love the three in the back. There's so much like movement and atmosphere and emotion and just such cool rendering. Yeah, I love it so much. I find and I do love the contrast between the characters. I like where they're all like cute and smug and powerful, and then you can see like where they end up. It's very like dark and tragic. I think that's a really cool contrast, like story-wise. Yeah. I'm not sure, because I know you're doing... I don't know how to draw hands. Mood. I'm sorry. AHP. Are you Star? Or do you just have a different name in the chat? Please let me know. So I'm not just like talking over you and ignoring you because I don't know if you're Star or not. I'm sorry. But anyways, so the foreground versions of them, you're doing some cool lighting stuff. I don't know who Star is. Okay, thank you. Because sometimes we have folks who like they'll have one name in Discord where they submit this stuff and then a different name on YouTube, and I'm like ignoring them, and then I'm like, wait, you're the person who submitted? So okay, thank you for clearing that up. Okay, so Star is not here as far as I know. Who made this piece? Anyways, but yeah, the lighting. So I love with Anakin how you've got the lightsaber like lighting him up from the front, and you've got this very like dramatic lighting on the face and along the front. They did do a really good job, right? But yeah, but I love this dramatic lighting on the face and like the front of his robe stuff. And like the posing is great. But yeah, but I love the kind of like he's lit from the front. There's these shadows, and then like the backlighting from like the Darth Vader kind of future form. And I see it a little bit with these two, where you've got the dual lighting on them as well, where like she got the light shining on this side of her. We see a little bit of her lightsaber like lighting her, and same with him. He's got like the bright light on the one side and then a little bit of the lightsaber lighting over here. And it does make for very dramatic lighting. I just think Ahsoka is the name of the lady. Thank you. Okay, I didn't know. I was like, the lady. Ahsoka. Okay. I wonder. Grab some snacks. Good choice. Good choice. I wonder if so I think, because I know what you're doing, like story-wise with this piece, where you have the younger version, which is very like exciting and like full of life and like the heroes, and then in the back it's like the future where everything's like very bleak and dark, and like you can see how things change between them. I'm wondering, just thinking of like the question you had about the prints, I'm wondering if you did a version where you took out them in the foreground and you just had these like 3 images of them in the future with this very like moody lighting. I'm curious to see how those would do, because the atmosphere for them is just so cool. Because it's hard to say, because I'm not like a huge Star Wars person, but like when I'm looking for like art to put on my wall, I don't know, I could see putting up something super moody that has such cool atmosphere like that. So that could be something to experiment with. Like maybe create a version where it's just the background, and you could make another version that's just the foreground characters. So you could have, the costs could get out of hand because of all the printing, but but that would be interesting. And then you could maybe do some kind of like A/B testing where you see like what people buy more. Yeah, where you could have the young versions as their own, you could have the older moody versions as their own, and then like have the 2 of them together as you have now. That would be interesting to see how they do. Yeah, because the only thing, if you were going to change something art-wise, I think the only thing I would recommend is like maybe differentiating the foreground characters from the back a little bit. Like I like how you're using the established lighting in the piece to light them. Like that really works. Like it keeps things cohesive, but I'm wondering if maybe maybe you need to differentiate it more, like, because the moody lighting works so well on the background because it's showing that emotion so clearly, right? But I think it's kind of taking away the mooding, the mood of the front, where it's supposed to be very like, you know, we're seeing these characters when they're all being all heroic and lovable and cute, right? So maybe you need to kind of put more of a bright spotlight on them. Like maybe they need different lighting where it's less harsh shadow dramatic stuff, where we can see this like cute little smirk that she's got, and we can see this like triumphant smile, and you know, like maybe the lighting on the front needs to be less dramatic and more hopeful. Like I could see giving them maybe like this kind of like fuzzy, not fuzzy, like softer, like a softer kind of like light hopeful thing. So then you could do like a contrast between this like kind of light fluffy hopeful triumphant like foreground, and then have this very like dark moody background behind them. I would even, thinking about like the direction of the light, I would maybe light them from below, kind of like how you have on Anakin, where we get more of a just a softer light on their face and on their front. You'd have to play around with it quite a bit to make sure it doesn't like take away from the atmosphere, and make sure it works for your characters. But like, I'd love to see their expressions a bit clearer, especially here on Ahsoka, because she's got such a cute expression there, but it's so hidden because of the dramatic lighting. Yeah. So I think that would be my advice. Hopefully it was helpful, and yeah, good luck with the conventions. Those can be so hard. It sucks when something you really love how it turned out doesn't sell very well. Yeah, this is such a cool piece. You should be really proud. Okay, and Star, let me know if you have questions after. I'm happy to answer them in Discord. AHP, I'm glad you got your snacks. Gotta stay snacked up and hydrated. And finally, we'll look at ink. Ink, I don't know if you're here. If you are, pop off. If not, you can ask me questions in Discord after. Okay, so you're looking for critique on a couple drawings versus Rose Quartz from Steven Universe. Okay. So you're trying to work on your gesture drawings. That's your recent area of focus. Very good. And you want me to look at the gesture, the anatomy, the shading and coloring, and the composition. Okay. So, gesture. So, there is lots of movement going on in this piece, which is awesome. Just from like the placement of like the hair curls and the way like the dress is flowing, the way her body is positioned, where she's like turning her head, her arms are out, she's got the cute little toes pointed together kind of pose to be like kind of cutesy. Yeah, there's just lots of good dynamic line work that even though she's like standing like straight forward looking at the camera, it still has that movement to it, which is awesome. I think working with gesture, I would honestly push for more dynamic gesture. To study. Because overall, I think you have a good sense of like expression in your characters, if that makes sense. Like, and I know that's something you've worked on in the past, where you're getting really, really great with like showing the personality and the emotion through their expressions, their kind of posing. But I think, and just from what I've seen of the second piece you submitted, I think your gesture is a little bit, I think it could be pushed more. I mean, it's not bad, but I think it could be pushed to be more dynamic. Like so when you're figuring out gesture drawing, it's really important to understand like a really strong line of movement. And then to create really dynamic poses, to use like lots of diagonal kind of crisscrossing lines, I guess is the simplest way to put it. So very popular, famous, fundamental, I don't know, technique for this, for say like a character who's just standing there, to create dynamicness, even if they're just like standing straight looking at us, is contrapposto, which is when the line of the shoulders, so if like you drew a line across your shoulders, they would tilt one way, and if you drew a line across the hips, they would tilt the opposite way. So you'd kind of have like a triangle shape created by like the line of your hip and shoulder, and that just creates dynamicness in the pose. So it's not just like standing straight, everything is very flat and straight and boring. It creates that like dynamicness even in a character who's just sitting there. So that's where to start. And then if you want to get into really dynamic gesture and posing, you push that. So you may have like, you choose an angle to draw where you follow your line of movement, which I have trouble describing what the line of movement is. It's very much like, it's like the through line of the pose. It's like the weight and gravity of the pose. Like, if you have someone standing there, they're in contrapposto, like all the weight is going onto their one foot that they're like leaning into, right? Where you kind of, the movement would probably be like down straight through that side of them. It might curve a little bit depending on their stance, but like it would be from like the top of their head down through that like firm line from like their head to where they're like leaning on their one foot. Yeah, I should probably do some examples of like studying gesture for like posing and stuff and doing dynamic kind of action pose stuff, because it's really fun. I find gesture stuff is so fun. It's just so cool. It's so cool to break down and like study different cool poses. But anyways, so I think if I would push dynamic kind of gesture drawing, but I think you've got a good foundation here. As for the anatomy, it's a little hard to tell. A lot of rose quartz here is covered up by her dress. I would like to see a little bit more structure there. It is hard because she has this like big fluffy skirt that she has, right? That covers up like her legs and hips and stuff. But I'd like to see maybe some more structure at like the bodice of her dress, because it kind of clings to her waist and then it flares out, where here it feels a little bit flowy right from like the bottom of the bust. So that's just one little thing. Gestures are fun. Oh, hey, Ink. When did you get here? You came just in time. Anyways, but yeah, anatomy wise, I'd like to see more structure around the bodice area. But I think otherwise everything's looking good. Take another nap. All right, goodbye, Kuroe. Thanks for coming. Get lots of rest. A couple minutes ago, caught part of the gestures talk. Okay. Hopefully you can scroll back. I was just saying, I think you can, your gesture's like good where it is, and I think you could like push it even more by doing some more like dramatic kind of gesture stuff. But anyways, anatomy wise, I love her hand that's holding the sword. That looks fantastic. I find her other hand feels a little bit like skinny, if that makes sense. It feels like it's missing the palm area and just goes straight into fingers. It is hard when you're drawing a hand from the side because, I don't know, hands are difficult. They're just so motile and weird. But yeah, but I think that her palm needs a bit more structure. But otherwise, I think you're doing great. I love her little feet. They're so cute. Her face looks great. I don't think there's any anatomy issues there. Shading and coloring. Again, all looks pretty good. Nothing's really standing out as a problem. The colors are very cohesive. Everything has that very like soft kind of like I like how you're using like a more kind of bluish purpley tone in like the pinks on the hair and like the shield, and then you're using that more kind of like reddish creamy color on the dress, so it's not like clashing. But yeah, it looks good. Shadows are pretty consistent. Color choice is good. It's true to the character. Yeah, I don't think I have any any big issues with that. I think you did a good job. And composition, the only thing I would say for this is she's very close to the edges of your canvas. I would just give more breathing room. Like put a couple, I don't know. I want to say centimeters, but I think you're American and I don't know if you'll understand what I'm saying. Like maybe like I don't know, like the equivalent of like a ½ inch around or more. She's just very close to like the edges, and I think making the canvas bigger or making her a bit smaller would give you more breathing room. I would especially give her more room above her head and maybe a little bit below her feet, more than giving space around on the sides, because I think that will complement the, like, it'll complement the portrait of her, if that makes sense. It'll complement the shape where she's very like tall in this piece. It's like a portrait piece. I know the canvas is a square, but you can accentuate the kind of portrait feel of it by making it like giving her a little more space above her head. Some context for this would be a charm and maybe a print where the simple background is expanded. Okay, as a charm, yeah, compositionally it's great. Really cute. This would be really fun to have as a charm, especially if it's like die cut around, like that would be really cute. But yeah, as a print, I would give more margin space. Totally. This makes me want to draw. Do it. Do it. Yeah, as a charm, this would be so cute. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, did you have any questions on this one? Anything? Oh, well. That covers it. Awesome. So we can do the next one, which I agree with Kuroe. It's so cool. Okay. So the second one is Bo-Katan from Star Wars. You kids in your Star Wars. And yeah, and there's more going on in the scene. So for the second critique, you also wanted some thought on the background elements, like in relation to the composition. Cool. Okay. So again, let me know if you have specific questions. I will happily answer. Okay, so gesture. So this one has more opportunity for like that dynamic gesture, right? Because there's more kind of going on with like the posing. I think you have a little bit of the contrapposto going on. It could be pushed more. So like you might have missed what I was saying there. But contrapposto is when the line of the shoulders, so if you did a horizontal line across your shoulders and tilted them one way, and then you drew a line across the hips horizontally and tilted them, I guess, the opposite way. That's like contrapposto. So you create this kind of like triangle shape with the shoulders and the hips. And that is like a way to create dynamicness within a pose. It's a good place to start when you're posing your characters to create dynamicness. You have it here a little bit. There's like a little bit of a tilt to the hips, a little bit to the shoulders. I think it could be pushed more. But I do love the posing. It says so much about the character where she's like pushing over this like dead stormtrooper body, like and doing this little like sassy like cross leg, balancing on a little helmet. Yeah, it just says a lot about the character, and it's very fun. But yeah, I just think the gesture could be pushed more. You could really lean into her like leaning out on this like the soldier and like tilting her head and like kind of laying back in the chair kind of casually. Like I think you could really push it more to really get that like sassy triumphant kind of thing you got going. Anatomy wise, I think overall things are looking good. The one place where I think there's a bit of trouble is the overlap of the legs. So you've got a good start here. This, I guess it would be the back leg, the one that's rested on the helmet. That one is super solid. It looks like connected to her torso really well. It's very structurally sound. I find the one leg that's crossed over, it starts really well, and then it goes kind of noodly in the middle. Where it's hard because when we do cross our legs like that, there is some, like, there's some squish that happens, right? Where because we have, like, you know, fat and muscles in our legs. It's the same with, like, when your arm is, like, crossing over something, you know, whatever. Where there is a little squish, and they do kind of, like, distort a little bit as they're, like, pressed together. And a lot of it gets, like, covered by overlap. But I think it's squished a little bit too much. I feel like her knee... Can you see my cursor? Hold on. Yeah, you can. Her knee of this leg would probably be, like, up here. Kind of around her elbow. And the leg would kind of descend here a little bit more. Like... Because, yeah, there'd be some squish with the bottom of the thigh, but the knee joint would still be sitting, like, up top here, if that makes sense. I can see it, yeah. But you got the right idea. I think, honestly, you could keep this bottom piece, like, where the thighs are, like, touching, and if you just raise the knee and kind of fix where it attaches to, like, this back leg, you'd be golden. It'd be perfect. But yeah, otherwise, like, the hands look great. Because I was giving you crap about the side view hand on the last piece. Like, this one here looks awesome. Yeah, otherwise it looks great. I love the little swing of her feet. I think it'll come with, like, pushing the gesture more. Her torso feels a little bit too straight on. So if you push it more, you could do a bit more kind of like a bend in her torso that I think would help anatomy-wise. But otherwise, it's looking pretty awesome. And then shading and coloring. Everything looks cohesive. I really like how the blue on her armor and then the red of her hair really stand out. You have some, like, touches of, like, the green and gray and red in the background, where, like, there's obviously some red tint to, like, the chair and the metal and the shadow on the armor and stuff, and there's some green in, like, the metal and the sky background stuff that, like, it matches with her color palette, but it's nice and, like, low-key. And then she gets to stand out as, like, our highlight character, our foreground character, where her hair stands out, so we look at her face, and then the blue of her armor really, like, catches your eye and, like, pops out against all this, like, reddy, orangey background stuff. The shadow stuff all looks good. It looks all pretty consistent. I like how you have a bit of a vignette on the foreground, so it's not stealing attention from the focal point character. Oh, pardon me. Yeah, color choice. Color-wise, totally awesome. And shading-wise, totally awesome. Compositionally, I have the same feedback as I had for the last one, where it's cropped very close. I like where it's cropped at her feet, where we get just like, there's some space between her and the bottom of the canvas. We get some good, like, visual information with, like, the fallen stormtrooper and the helmet. So I think that's good, but her head it's very close to the top of her head. I would add a bit more space above her. And I think that would help fill things out. I don't think you need to expand the sides. I think that's good. Just needs more headroom. But yeah, the background elements are awesome. You create such great, like, it's like leading lines bringing you back to the character. Like, I like how you have these, like, lines up top that kind of bring you down to the character's face. You kind of follow her body. And you look at this, like, soldier beside her, and his arm kind of goes down towards, like, the helmet, and these, like, I guess decorative pieces on the cockpit or the chair, like, lead you down there, and then you can follow back up her leg to her face. Like, it's just got a very nice, like, composition, placement. Like, the background stuff is very subtle, but it really works to your advantage. Like, I think compositionally, this is, like, a really great piece. Goodbye, AHP. Thank you for joining. Yeah. Did you have any other questions on this? Was there anything you would like covered here? Is this another print you're working on? That covers it. This one's a print. Wanted something challenging, a sitting pose. Nice. Well, it turned out well. That's awesome. Hello, Mr. Hero. I don't draw a lot of people sitting. It was fun and different. I think you did a great job. Sitting can be difficult, especially when you have like foreshortening with like the knees pointing towards the camera. It can be so difficult, and I think this is like a really great job. So yeah. Amazing. Okay, let me just make sure I haven't missed anyone. I think we're good. I think everyone had their critique done. Well, thank you all so much for joining. My goodness. And I really appreciate everyone, like, being understanding with me moving things. I had, like, a big work trip. I was gone, like, camping with my work, which was super fun. I had a great time, but I was so tired when I got back. And then yesterday we had to like get the bird. We put her at a boarding place while I was gone, and we had to pick her up, and we were dead tired. So I really appreciate people allowing us to stream today and not, I don't know, causing a mutiny, stealing the channel. I don't know. I don't know what you guys would do. You're dangerous. So yeah. Thank you all. Anyone who was not here, please let me know if you have questions in Discord. I'm happy to answer them. And if you yourself are like watching this and you're like, hey, I want to get my stuff critiqued, there should be a link down to our Patreon in the description where you can sign up. All the information you need is there, and you can submit artwork, you can submit comic scripts, comic pages, illustrations, pieces of prose, whatever you got. We'll look at it. We'll give you feedback. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you later.